Hello and welcome Gilbert O'Sullivan to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
Oh, amazing. Great to have you on today. Your 19th album is due out this summer. It's self-titled. How come it took this many albums to come up with an album called Gilbert O'Sullivan?
Well, the irony is that I quite like album titles. And
Yeah.
historically, if you look at some of my album titles, interesting ones, I came up with a whole list of different titles this time. But the record company turned around and said, we want to call it Gilbert O'Sullivan. There's an element that they feel this harks back to my first album.
Yeah.
It has a feeling of going right back to the beginning, maybe because of the producer, Ethan Johns, whose approach to production is kind of very undigital and very kind of analog and organic in a kind of way. So it might be something to do with that. So, I go along with it.
Yeah, I got that because obviously the first album was myself and using that equipment back then. Was it important to you as well to, go back and use all the old equipment?
No, not really. I mean, analog, it's a bit like vinyl and CD. You know yourself that the argument that vinyl is much better than CD in terms of sound. To younger people, to a digital audience, they don't see the difference.
No.
And the thing about analog is that there's no question that in the studio, I have, because our album was recorded in my own studio, which is a purpose-built 48-track digital. It has all the technical stuff that we have today, but it also I have two 16-track machines, analog machines. So it was great. And as I say, the producer, Ethan, was very analog in his approach to music. So therefore, it worked out perfectly. And there's no question that recording backing tracks on analog, it does make a difference, albeit that you end up on digital.
Yeah.
But there is a difference that we as artists and engineers and producers can feel.
Yeah. We've played the new single, Where Do You Go To? It's very Dylan-esque, and I suppose he was one of your biggest influences when you started out, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I found that, I think that might be because of the organ. There's quite a lot of organ on the album. Again, that's Ethan's approach with musicians. Yeah. It's probably the first album I've had where the organ is quite strong throughout, almost on every track. So I think that it's an element of that Rolling Stone period of Dylan coming across us. Yeah, I mean, Dylan was a huge influence for me in the beginning. The Beatles, Lennon and McCartney for songwriting, and Dylan for vocals and stuff, because I never considered myself to be that great a singer. So therefore, Dylan was so successful in 61, 62 that that resonated with me, and I felt, well, if he could be successful with his voice, perhaps I could with mine.
Yeah, because of course you were a writer initially. Moving over to here as an Irish lad, did it influence you living in London, living in a big city?
We left Ireland when I was 7 because the grass is greener. My dad was a butcher and gets more money coming to England. And therefore, Swindon is pretty much where I was raised. Swindon is my musical background. That's where our family grew up, and which is still our family home with my two sisters who live there. And so, that's all my musical roots. There's no Irish roots for me musically. I know you two have said there is, and I know that Phil Lynott said there was, and I know that Bob Geldof says there's perhaps something in him. But with me, it's all to do with growing up in England, with English pop music, American pop music. That's the whole background to my songwriting.
Because it is very British, of course. That's the way it is. And I suppose London in the 60s, it wasn't exactly Austin Powers, but it was a time of change. And you wanted to make these pop songs, didn't you?
Well, I mean, I came to London in 67 to break in. The band I was in just before that, I mean, we were a really good band, and we wanted to turn professional. The piano player and I was the drummer. We were determined, we were a really good band around the Swindon area, but the guitarist and the bass player were on apprenticeships, so they didn't want to turn professional. So that meant that Rick Davis, then he went on and eventually formed Supertramp, and I went on and formed me. So I came to London, and of course to try and break into the business. I mean, 60s, it's a fantastic time to be in London. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the hub of everything going on. But Long Hair was here to stay, and Flower Power was in and stuff. So I kind of created this image which went totally against the grain. But I had great fun. It was a wonderful time.
Yeah, the flat cap.
Yeah, the cap and boots and the pudding basin haircut. I mean, at the time, I looked like a freak, but today it looks the most fashionable thing.
Very cool. Was it your mum who made you have piano lessons, saying that you could make money in the pubs?
Yeah, I think that was the working class attitude. There was always pianos in working class homes for some reason.
Yeah.
And so I think, if one of your kids could learn to play, then arguably when they got older they could earn a few bob playing in the pub and stuff. Yeah, there was an element of that. So I was very lucky to have the piano, and eventually, also we had a garden shed which I was able to play to my heart's content on weekends and evenings.
When you started releasing songs in the 70s, of course, Claire, Nothing Rhymed were massive, and then Alone Again had US success, which for most singers would have been the epitome of what they wanted, but that wasn't exactly what you wanted, was it, at the time?
Well, I never saw success outside where I lived. I mean, England was my home, and so therefore for me, success was about, the postman coming down the garden gate whistling one of my songs and stuff. I never sort of thought in terms of global success. So, being successful in America, I was, I wasn't, okay. The record company and the management were obviously really, but I wasn't bothered if I never went there. I mean, I was nominated for Grammys and stuff, and I didn't really want to go, to be honest.
Wow.
But I had to go, and I appreciated the success. I was pleased that it was a success in America. But again, I said my roots were pretty much living I lived in Surrey then, in my own house and stuff, and I was really quite contented to stay at home.
Wow. Well, I can remember all these great songs from the 70s, and I bought the album because Mel Scholes was a very famous radio DJ up here in Stoke, and he used to, in the 80s this was, we're playing all your songs all the time, so I put the greatest hits tape, and my mum stole it off me, and we used to listen to it in the car all the time. And I can remember Get Down was a single I remember as a child, but every time it's on TV they show the Pants People version of Top of the Pops.
Dogs,
Every time it's on there.
I've got a copy of that, so it's okay. I mean, the reason they did that was because I was actually away on tour. I think I was on tour in Europe when that was number one in England, and so therefore I was unavailable for Top of the Pops. So that's Pants People stepped in. Yeah. I liked Pants People. I liked Babs of Pants People. She was my favourite.
I think she was everyone's. Of course, you've inspired a lot of songwriters: Morrissey, Paul Weller. Two of my favourites, Difford and Tilbrook. You can definitely tell your influence on what they did.
The English lyricist. It's you're speaking about the country you're living. You're not writing about LA or New York. So Tilbrook and the Squeeze writers, Paul Weller, Morrissey. I mean, they pretty much write about things that are going on in their environment, and I think that's pretty much how I view my lyrics. You kind of write the way people speak.
Are you looking forward to playing some live shows again?
I don't tour a great deal because I spend most of my time writing, which is the key to everything I do. I mean, without the songs, I wouldn't be talking to you and stuff. So it's the importance of songwriting. So, but touring is important, but it's kind of limited for me, maybe 3 to 4 months maximum.
Yeah. When you meet these fans after the shows, I bet you meet a lot of Claires or husbands of Claires.
Yeah, there's a few of them. It's interesting. We just come back from Australia, where we toured there for the first time. And it was strange to be on stage after a couple of songs to introduce myself and say, well, we finally got here after 47 years. and then you meeting people afterwards. I got people who said, oh, we've seen you in concert. And I'd say, like, when was that? And they say 1972. So it's there's a long history there. But yeah, it's meeting and greeting people is it can be, for example, I was an hour and a half last night signing and stuff.
Yeah. Which
after singing for 2.25 hours can be a little bit tiring, but it's worth it because people really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I'm glad you've got a new album out because you finally come on my show, which I'm really happy about. Gilbert O'Sullivan, thank you very much for talking to me.
Yeah, great, Terry. Nice talking to you too.